Farming skills have improved a little bit since then. But just an incredible challenge to get started on this project, learning how to work together with the soil, learning how to work together with the plants, learning how to understand what is happening in the plant throughout the growing season. Where we are here it's Pinot Noir, it's clone 115. This is the most widely planted clone of Pinot Noir in the United States. It's a great all-around clone. Some of you, I know, have been out at the winery, have been tasting it out of barrels. We keep the clones separate in the barrels until a couple of months before bottling. So we like to use them, have them separate so we can kind of taste them individually. But it is what we got most planted of. We got 7 acres of clone 115, and it is really the backbone in our Pinot Noir wines. In our 2004 and 5, that was the first 2 years we released wine from the vineyard here. In 04 and 05, it was 2/3 of our Pinot Noir. So our Roe and our Lambda 04 and 05 is 2/3 115 and 1/3 clone Pomar 4, which is a clone that we're going to walk by a little bit further over here. And you can see there's kind of, every second row looks like messy, and then some of them are green, and this looks like God knows what. And there's actually, there's meaning to the whole thing. So these rows here are seeded with this stuff, which is, this is triticale. It's a type of barley. And it's seeded simply because to have something to keep the topsoil there. So if we have heavy rainfalls, that the soil doesn't roll away. So it's just a good way of protecting the soil. Every second row, the next row over there, is seeded with a bunch of different legumes. And those are far more interesting rows. I know they look messy right now, but there's a reason for it. So they were seeded with fava. That is those rows here. Every second row, triticale, every second row legumes. And what happens then in these rows is that if you look carefully, you will see a lot of insects in there. Especially we got millions of ladybugs, and we got all kinds of spiders here. And they're really, really good because they take care of some of the bad insects like aphids and all the bad ones. Ladybugs, even though they look pretty, they're very brutal insects. And I've also heard that if you have too many of them, they taste horrible. Not that I eat too many ladybugs. But the problem is when we then go out and we mow, and this stuff is going to be mowed within a few days. When we go out and mow this stuff, we take their habitat away from the insects. So we started working on different buffer zones around the vineyard to just let things grow, like on the hills and the different other areas. But it wasn't really efficient enough. So 2 years ago we started a new thing, which is what we do right here, where we don't do anything. This is not seeded, it is whatever was there before, and there's mustard, there's clover, there's thistle, there's all kinds of things that grows here. And we just let these every 10th row grow throughout the whole year. So that becomes a natural habitat for these insects. So when we mow the other 9 rows, they can move in here and still work from here and go out and attack the bad insects. And that from this area here that we call the heads, there'll be a little shoot that will start coming up, and it'll be growing, like this guy here. It'll be growing throughout the year, and then when the year is over, these guys are going to be all the way up here. Then we will go out end of January, beginning of February, we'll prune them all down. This is Syrah, it's clone 470 of Syrah, and some of you have probably tried our 2006 Epsilon, which was a Syrah from this block alone. So these grapes taste so darn good, and it's just a little one in the block that we can look at from our bedroom window, and I've always had a special relationship to this block right here, and that clone tastes so darn good. So We had 4 barrels of it in 2006 for the first vintage, and we bottled it separately in the Epsilon. It's unfortunate it's totally sold out, but it's an incredible clone. It will, going forward from 07 and forward, it's part of our gamma, so it's blended in with the other Syrah clones that we got.
The reason you changed the directions of the rows?
Yeah, it's a great question. Why do we have different directions? Ultimately, if you can plant any way you want to plant, you want to plant like 7 o'clock to 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, so north, northeast to south, southwest. Because that way, when it's the warmest of the day, which is like 12:30 to 1 o'clock, then the clusters will be in the shades. But we don't always have that luxury. So in this case, with that block, the reason why we didn't plant that way was it would give us some incredibly long rows, and it's very unpractical with long rows. So if you want to get into them, you don't want to have to drive for 5 minutes. So therefore, we found it was more beneficial to go with that direction. The way we planted these guys here is, the rule was to make sure that the tractor driver could survive. Because the dangerous thing for a tractor driver is not to drive steep up and downhill. There's no problems with that. It is side slope. Side slope is the worst. So therefore, like that block over there, we've been following the slope of that block itself and planted in that direction. This one behind us, that's Pinot Noir, 2 different clones of Pinot, that one over there. Of course, there's slight side slope down there, but we are still planting, and most of it we're planting up and down with the slope of hills. This one, there's side slopes on the side, but the steepest part of it is right over here, going down that way.